Hello and welcome. My name is Tom. This is the Enthusiasm Project, Season 4, Episode 6. And today, we're going in a different direction from where we went in the last couple weeks. Because the past 3 episodes, if you haven't heard them, a couple things to say about those. First, thank you to everybody who's given me feedback. I've only ever gotten good feedback about it. So thank you if you had negative feedback for not giving that to me. I appreciate that. If you didn't listen to those, I'd really recommend it if you're somebody who shares, creativity online in some way. I broke down in the course of 3 episodes. One episode was all about how we structured our LLC and just handled things as a business. The second episode was a revenue stream breakdown, and the third episode was an expense breakdown for my YouTube channel. So you kind of get an idea of just where things stand and how they work and what kind of numbers to expect if you're someone like me or somebody, with a channel or an audience or whatever about the size where I'm at right now. And so hopefully that's helpful. It seems like it's been helpful. I'm always happy to answer, questions if you've got any. So feel free to reach out, or if you have, suggestions or ideas, you can always share those. You can even just, email them to me, tom@enthusiasmproject.com. And you can send a voice clip or just type it out, and I'll include those in a future episode. So just wanted to make sure that invite is always there. Moving on from that little trilogy, which was sort of an accidental trilogy, but I ended up really liking it. This week, I wanted to talk more about a creative process, because that was very nuts and bolts, and now I wanted to dive into creative, motivation side of things. And there's specifically something that I've been working through lately that I think it would be good for me to just talk it out. So thank you for being my therapist, but also I think it might be helpful. Maybe it's relatable in some way. And in trying to think of how to contextualize this, the title of this episode is When They Zig, You Zag. That's kind of the theme here. And I think if you've ever been in a position where you make and share stuff online, the amount that you let the work of others influence you, that's a very fine line to walk, because I don't think you want to be totally just in blinders, have no idea what's happening in the world around you. But I also don't think you want to, you definitely don't want to find yourself in a position where you're just so influenced by everything that's happening around. And I've done a couple, streams and podcasts lately where people have asked, how do you stay aware of trends in your niche? And my answer is I don't, because that doesn't fit in with me personally. But also, when it comes to something that's a trend, by the time you've noticed it's a trend, it is definitely too late to hop on that trend, because by the time you make something and try to tack onto it, it's I don't know. Remember when the Harlem Shake was huge in 2013 and everyone was making Harlem Shake videos? And then if you made one in 2014, it was just confusing, those kinds of things. When there's a trend, it's you either catch the wave or you don't. And I don't think, at least I can't be somebody who plans to be part of a trend. I don't know that I've ever been part of a trend, but it's just something that would just kind of happen. And so the answer, a lot of times what I'll do personally is literally look at what a trend is and then go, what is the opposite of that? And then do a version of that. But that's if I'm being kind of almost aggressively anti-trend, which is the most hipster sounding thing ever. But, you can just sort of sense when fatigue will set in. And I think that if you're creating something online and you notice a bunch of people in your area or your niche are doing this sort of thing, which could be considered a trend, and you could say, well, geez, should I make something that hops on that trend? Or you could go, you know what? Since this is a trend, and since a lot of people are watching it or listening to this right now, I would bet people are going to get tired of that kind of soon. So if somebody's feeling tired of that, what would be a nice, alternative? What would be a palate cleanser? It doesn't even mean that the trend is bad. It just means hey, remember 3 years ago when everybody was doing cinematic quote unquote B-roll sequences with slow motion and stuff, and it was really, really fun. But then like all at once, everybody got tired of that. So then you have to think, well, what's a good palate cleanser to that? What's a nice alternative to that thing that just sort of, people just sort of got tired of it, even if it was cool or even if it serves a purpose still, when used appropriately. Just figuring out, what comes next, I think is a very helpful thing. And I think it lets you really kind of dictate based on your interest and your personality and your goals where you want that stuff to go. So the example that I had is actually a strategy that Heather and I came up with last year. So when we were originally planning our wedding, which, as you might know, ended up being not what we planned at all, because we got married during quarantine, lockdown, and we ended up, having our wedding at the county office, which was a makeshift office at a movie theater. So we were at the ticket booth of a movie theater, which ended up being the best wedding ever. And it was the best day, and I love it. And it cost $186, 10 out of 10, would recommend. But so that's, a very non-traditional wedding situation. Prior to that, when no one could have predicted that was where things were going to go, we were planning our wedding. And neither of us have very extravagant tastes or, lavish lifestyles or anything like that. So we just want things to be simple. We want things to be heartfelt. We want things to be fun. And so that was our thought was, okay, well, we'll just have a simple, we'll keep things simple. Like, here's a cool venue. Neat. We'll invite these people. Cool. And then very quickly, and if you've ever planned a wedding, you probably have experienced this, things can just balloon out of control. So it goes, let's invite these people here. It'll be really fun. But then the game of like, well, if you invite this person, you got to invite this person. If you invite that person, you got to invite these people over here. And now your guest list of 25 people is 200 people. And then you got to pay for food for 200 people. And okay, well, here's the options. Here is, this or that. And I don't know, and all the different stuff. And then, okay, here's the reception, but it's not just a reception, because then you got to have a rehearsal dinner, and then you got to have this, then you got to have like the day after breakfast, and people are coming in from out of town. There has to be accommodations, so we need to book a block of rooms at a hotel. Like, suddenly you're just spending an exorbitant amount of money on something that you might not even actually care about. Not that, like I or we didn't care about the wedding, but all these little things where it's like, well, you have to do this, and you have to do that, and you have to do this. It's like, well, but why though? Do we? And so what we did was we came up with this thing where, and we've done it a lot since, where we pretend like we're aliens. And what I mean is, it was mostly Heather's idea. She was like, okay, if we were from a different planet and we showed up on Earth and we were told that we need to plan a wedding, what would we do? If all that we knew was that, hey, on Earth, there's this thing called a wedding. The whole point of it is that two people who love each other want to commit themselves to each other for the rest of their lives, and there's a ceremony to commemorate that. What would you do? And that's kind of how we approached it, and it basically let us cherry pick what we want. It doesn't mean that everything, that you would find in a traditional wedding is bad or anything, but not everything is for us. So we could go through and go like, well, this seems really cool. We don't really care about this. And it really was helping us fine tune what we wanted. Obviously, it ended up being something totally different, but that strategy though has stuck around so much. And so in the, year and a half since we came up with that, we've used it on like everything from not just weddings and personal stuff, but a lot of like work and business related things, because it's so easy to get caught up in how you think things are supposed to be and how other people are doing things and how, the best practices for something, and putting yourself in that like alien position of, okay, if I was from a totally different planet and this is what I need to do, how would I do it? Like trying to reconnect with the purest way that you would approach something and you would do something, I think is really, really valuable. And I can tell you specifically right now where I'm working on that is, you may or may not know, I'm putting together my first course that I've ever made. And I hate even calling it a course. I'm trying to think of a different name. I know other people have called them things like programs or, lessons or whatever, just because course kind of has a connotation of like, oh, look, I'm selling a course. It's a get rich quick thing. But like legitimately, I've been a teacher for over a decade professionally, and I've been doing media production stuff for my whole life. So it kind of makes sense to teach people stuff about media. Plus, as much as I love my high school students, there's something very, there's just something very enticing about the idea that, like, here's an adult, or, you know, at least somebody, if they're not an adult, somebody who has paid money, dedicated their own time and energy to do this because they actually have that motivation. I don't have to work on the motivation part of it, and I just have to provide them with exactly what the course says it's going to provide. So that is very, very exciting to me. Plus, you know, when we talked in the revenue stream episode, it's a great revenue stream. I would love not to just do one course, but I would love to do multiple courses at different levels. And, you know, that would be fun for me to scratch the itch of like teaching stuff I really care about, while also generating hopefully what would be like a solid revenue base for my business. And there's a whole industry around online courses, and Heather's kind of the expert of it, and she set stuff up. She's so good at it, and she's been helping me and trying to simplify it as much as possible. But my impulse, the dullard that I am, would be, okay, I want to make a course. I will put together the material, the curriculum, I'll put it all together, and then I'll just pop it up online and tell people, hey, you want to buy my course? Go over there, and there it is. And turns out that is not the way to do it. And not that that couldn't work, not that you know, people wouldn't find it, but it's probably not going to do as well as it could, regardless of the quality. If you just took the same thing, you know, it's almost like, I don't know, take a product and it's a great product and you put it on the back of a shelf in some dingy store that no one goes in, it's probably not going to sell, even if it's a great product. Like, you know, you need to make it available to people in a way where the right people are going to find it and it's going to appeal to them and they're going to understand it. Just like on YouTube, where you can make the best video in the world, but if it doesn't have a good thumbnail and a good title, people aren't going to click on it because they can't even see how good the video is without those little flashy things to kind of bring them in. It's sort of the same thing. Doesn't matter how good the course is, if it's not getting in front of the right people. And even if it's in front of the right people, if they don't understand what it is and how it would fit into what they need or solve a problem or whatever, it's not going to work. So it's foolish to spend the time and energy making something and then kind of like cripple it, you know, like, what do they call it? Like, I don't know, pop it in the kneecaps, where you're just hobbling it right off the gate and it doesn't even get a chance to do as well as it could. But at the same time, going through like what is considered, you know, best practices for online courses and stuff, if I followed every single thing that's the best practice, I don't think I'd ever stop gagging, because it just doesn't work for me. And it works for some people. It just does not work for me. And so currently I'm in the process of, here's how I would do it. Here's what the best practices are. What about what I would do aligns with those? And is there stuff I can just totally get rid of? Like, I know there's a whole thing Heather was telling me about, you know, a lot of people then lean on Pinterest for, I don't know, gaining somehow to promote their course. And I was like, yeah, not even, no, no. It's not a thing that I'm even going to consider doing. So there's just certain things where I can just easily say no. And then there's other stuff where it's like, okay. For example, something like having a webinar, where it's not something I would think. I would think like, here's the course. Maybe I need to make a little trailer, like kind of advertising it, explaining it. But apparently, like, something that is really good to do is to do a webinar, like a 90-minute live stream lesson. It's not necessarily about your course, but it's sort of about something related to it. And then you're engaging with people right away. And that's a great way, I guess, to get people excited about it, get people feeling comfortable buying it, get people understanding, you know, how you approach it and what it might be like to take the course. That's not something I would have expected, but it does make sense. And I actually like the idea. So, like, I'm cool with doing that, because it sounds really neat to spend 90 minutes teaching something specifically without having to worry about like, you know, YouTube editing, where, oh, it needs to be super quick, and oh my gosh, I breathed for 2 seconds here, so I got to cut out that dead space and move this over here, and it just can kind of like everybody who's there is there for a reason, and we're digging kind of deep into a thing. That sounds fun. So, there's certain things that I'm taking and certain things that I'm rejecting. And I've never done this before, so I'm totally out of my comfort zone. Once I've gone through this, then I'll have a better idea of, yes, this was a good idea. No, that was a bad idea, and can evaluate from there. But point is, it's intimidating to walk into an established industry like online courses and not know what I'm doing and try to do things my way, but also try to do things in the way that like has been proven to work. So without just, cutting off all chances of success. And that's something that I've been sort of struggling with and working on right now. And I think it'll be okay. It's just been confusing. And that's where this kind of thing popped up too, because it's like, well, what would, thinking of myself, like what would I be interested in if I were to find an online course, and what would turn me away from one? And there's definitely certain types of advertising where if I saw that, even if the product is good, I would be turned away from it just because it would kind of immediately make me kind of distrustful, kind of like, but that's me also because I'm a weirdo like that. But anyway, also shameless plug, if you're interested in signing up for the wait list of that course, which is going to be all about audio podcast editing, by the way, probably should have mentioned that. You can go to himynameistom.com, and there's a button right at the top, a big blue and red button or pink button that says join the wait list. And it's just a wait list where I can update you when stuff has come out. I promise there's no spam. I've literally never even sent out a message to that wait list yet. So don't worry, you're not going to get 5 emails a day or anything. It's literally just if you're actually interested in the course and you want to know how it's coming along, when it's coming out, that sort of stuff. That's definitely the way to stay up to date, because I'm not going to be really promoting it on my YouTube channel or anything. I don't want to have built up a community and an audience over a number of years to then suddenly be like, all right, I got you right where I want you. Now I'm going to sell you stuff. So this is if it's something you're actually interested in. There you go. You can go to himynameistom.com. That was a pretty smooth, sounded like I planned an ad right there. I could be good at this stuff. Speaking of which, actually, this is somewhat related to what we're talking about. I have never monetized a podcast ever. I have 3 podcasts. I've never monetized any of them. And I've never really, there's 2 reasons. One is because for me, the podcasts are fun. They're like the side project of my side project. And 2, the podcasts have also served as a role of building authority. So when I make, videos about audio gear and podcasting and streaming and all that stuff, having an example of me actually doing the thing that I'm talking about really does build credibility. And so that's been a great, that's been a purpose that the podcast has served. So that's why it never really occurred to me to monetize it. Also, the other reason is that I don't know how. So that's probably the main one, is that I just don't know how. Obviously, I listen to podcasts that are monetized, and I know some people, they start the show with some ads, and you can skip through them and then go to the show. And some people have ad breaks in the middle, and sometimes it's like YouTube where the podcast service will just throw on random ads, and other time the person. So I don't know, but I've thought about monetizing it, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that in my own way, because I've had multiple people who listen. So it's not even my idea. It's people who listen to the show going you should monetize this. If you hate that idea, let me know. If you think that's a good idea, also let me know, please, because you're the one who listens to this. So that would be important for me to know. But I've been trying to figure out okay, well, what are some sponsors that make sense, that I would want to support the show, that would actually want to support me, and then how could I bring that in? I don't want to bring an ad into an episode for $20. That is not worth it. I'll pay $20 so you don't have to hear an ad. So what is that happy medium? It's sort of the same process that I had to navigate when I monetized my YouTube channel, and just had to figure out where the line was. So anyway, you know me well enough to know I wouldn't just whore the show out to whoever. It would just be, specific stuff. But that's another thing where I'm trying to go, okay, here's an established way of doing things. There's a lot that I don't like about it, but there's probably a way to do it my way. So how can I approach it? And I'm trying to work through that as well. And that's kind of where it's so easy when you're out of your element to look at what other people do and just do things that way. Case in point. Well, there's two things actually. So a couple months ago, I came across a YouTube channel, and it gave me that feeling that you get when you find your new favorite YouTube channel, where if you've ever, you find a video, you watch it, it's good, you click on the channel, and you just realize there's like pages and pages of other videos that you just really want to watch, and you're like, oh my gosh, I could just binge this entire channel. It's such a good feeling. It's like finding a new TV series to stream that has, lots of seasons in it. And you're just like, yes, okay. That happened a few months ago. Late last year, I found a YouTube channel called Podcastage with Bandrew Scott. And it covers similar stuff to what I cover sometimes on my channel. Lots of microphones, lots of audio gear. He is better at it than I am. So if you want to know like actual details about that stuff and the technical sides of things, he is better at it than I am. But it just sort of popped up because he's reviewed some of the same stuff that I've reviewed on my channel, and I just want to see like, oh, what did he think about the pod mic or this mic or whatever? And he's been doing it for years and years and years, so there's a huge library of stuff there, and the videos are so good. He's definitely got more technical knowledge than I do and more experience, and has been doing it for a really long time. But as I watched a couple videos, this thing happened where I went, uh-oh, there's a lot of similarities here. Not necessarily on the surface, and maybe I'm the only one who would feel that way, but I kind of don't think so, because I was like, okay, he's got sort of a dry, sarcastic sense of humor. He's talking about, some of the same things. Even just sort of the way, like we're dealing with microphones, the certain way that you test it, this sort of thing. He's got guitars that he'll pull out and incorporate into stuff. And I was just like, uh-oh, this feels familiar. And it kind of scared me because, just to be clear, this was like recently that I discovered the channel. So the similarities weren't things that like I had stolen from his channel, and a lot of the videos I was watching were years old. So clearly they were things that he had been doing since long before I had my channel. Plus my channel is way, way smaller. So it is just the case of two people finding some similar ways of approaching a subject, or possibly having similar parts of their personalities that pop out. But then I had the thought of like, as much as I wanted to just watch more and more and more videos, I had to consciously go, actually, I don't think I should watch any more of these videos, because seeing how similar we are accidentally, if suddenly like that is actually in my brain, I would be so scared of pulling something subconsciously, like of being... There's nothing wrong with being influenced by something or learning a better way to do things, but I wouldn't want to just replicate what somebody else is doing, because they've already done it, and there's a good chance in this case at least, that they've done it better. So I was like, oh, I'm going to stop specifically to avoid it accidentally creeping in to me, because I tend to absorb things. I play a lot of Film Riot videos in my classes, or at least I did when we were in person. I've done that for years, because they're great. The Film Riot YouTube channel is amazing for learning stuff about, filmmaking and gear and editing and all that kind of stuff. And there's so many good videos, and they're so well explained, and they're so engaging that I use them in my classes a lot. And so what I've noticed, though, is Ryan, the host of Film Riot, he talks very fast, and he has sort of like a certain accent and a certain way of talking. And when I play one of their videos, it'd be like a 10-minute video. Usually I do the teacher thing where I play a couple minutes, pause it, we talk about it, play a few more minutes, pause it, we talk about it. What I've noticed is that when the video is over and then I start talking to the class, I kind of feel like I sound like him, like Ryan from Film Riot. like I'm speaking faster. I have like the same cadence. And it's like, just because I was listening to that loudly for 10 minutes, it just got into my brain. And now I can't even stop myself from it's weird. It's not really a quality I would want. It's just sort of a thing that happens. And so recognizing that, I want to make sure that like, okay, if I think this is something that could influence me creatively in a way that like I don't want it to, because I wouldn't want to just replicate what someone else is already doing really well, then maybe I should pause it. As much of a bummer as that is, because in the case of the Podcastage channel, like there's a lot of stuff on there I just really want to watch. But it's interesting too, because so that happened like last fall, and my most recent video as of the recording of this is about two Shure Unidyne microphones, so like these retro looking microphones. And one of them has a very specific pickup pattern, a supercardioid pattern, and the other one has a regular cardioid pattern, which basically means one is very directional and one is like kind of directional. And I did a comparison in them. And in that video, because these two microphones were supposed to have specific pickup patterns, I wanted to test that out in different ways. And so a couple things I did was I like took the microphones and sort of spoke into them and turned them around so you could hear how it would stop picking up my voice and then start picking up my voice. And then people always ask like, will this microphone pick up my typing on a keyboard if I'm using it? So I was like, okay, I'll type on the keyboard there. And then suddenly I got all these comments that were, when are you going to throw the box? You didn't throw the box. Why didn't you throw the box? You should throw the box. And I was like, what are you guys talking about? And then I realized that in his review videos, Bandrew, if he talks about a microphone, he has the box, he'll like throw it really hard into the wall in the back of his room, and it's just sort of like a thing on the channel. I was like, oh, so they're like seeing similarities. And then I realized, because when he does microphone reviews, he does the directional test where the microphone spins and you can hear how it's picking up sound from different angles. And I'm also holding one of the microphones right now. I don't know why, when I told you about it, I picked it up as if you could see it, but it's more authentic because I'm holding the microphone. But also he does like keyboard typing tests and things, which didn't really occur to me because in my case, like I have been, for some reason in the past couple of weeks, getting all kinds of questions about, will the microphone pick up a keyboard? And then in this case, because the microphones had specific pickup patterns, it made sense for me to like spin them around so you could hear how they speak in different ways, or how they pick up sound in different ways from different angles. But anyway, it just sort of confirmed what I was worrying about, where I was like, oh my gosh, I, again, accidentally like stumbled on a way of doing things and people are drawing connections. So I don't even know where I'm going with that, but I wouldn't want to be, I just want to do things my own specific way. So here's another example. This weekend, the video that I'm going to be making, doesn't mean it's the one that's going to come out recently, but I'm going to make a review on my M1 Mac Mini that I got at the beginning of this year. Because I just got the base model Mac Mini, if you're not aware, and it completely changed everything. It is the best computer. It is like $600 or $700, and it's amazing. And it's changed everything, especially for someone who records a lot of audio. And my old computer, well, not old, it's sitting over there and it's still a very expensive current generation computer. But my MacBook Pro, the fans are so loud and they would make so much noise. And so the Mac Mini is silent and super powerful and super fast, and I love it. And so I want to make a video about that. I don't do a lot of computer videos on my channel. I'm not a computer channel. But the reason I think I want to do a video about a computer is because of how much it has impacted my workflow. And I think there's a lot of people who listen and a lot of people who watch my videos who have similar workflows to me. They use some of the same applications. They do a lot of the same things. They've struggled with, fan noise while recording a podcast, and they've struggled with the computer lagging and freezing when you're editing, 4K footage or something like that. Or trying to do multiple things at once, like God forbid you have Zoom and Photoshop open, the computer will just launch itself into orbit. So I figured this would actually be helpful to do a computer video, because since it is so affordable and since it has had such an insane effect on my workflow, I want to tell other people about that. And my thought was, this was just yesterday, I was like, oh, okay, I've done like one computer video, and that was years ago. I don't really know how to do computer videos. I should watch some computer reviews to see what kind of stuff I should talk about. And that was just my first thought, because again, I was out of my element thinking this is what I should do. I don't want to be an idiot and make a computer video, and then people are going to be like, but you didn't even mention the blah, 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 the blah, blah, blah. And I had to quickly go, no, don't watch another computer video, because that's going to get into your brain. The same thing even happened just after I watched a handful of podcastage videos, which again are amazing. Like, I'm not in any way critiquing them. They're so good. But it's still, because they're so good and because just how well made they were or they are, it just immediately put Bandrew as like an authority in my mind. And then after that, like the next audio related video that I made, I was just kind of thinking like, oh, well, should I have like, do I need to show charts and diagrams? Do I need to do this? And then I realized, no, like it was already getting into my brain. Like, if you want to do this right, you need to do things this way. And I had to tell myself, no, do that stuff if you think it's relevant, but don't do it if you think you're supposed to just because other people are doing it. Because one, maybe that's not relevant to you, which would mean maybe it's not relevant to the people who watch you. And two, someone has already done it. Like, if you want that really in-depth technical thing, there's someone else who's already done it and done it really, really well. So there you go. Like, why do I need to do that, And there are times, I guess I should say, let me just pause real quick. There are times when it is okay, like Raphael Ludwig, who was on at the start of the season, he was talking in a live stream a week or two ago. He started doing a weekly live stream. Totally recommend it. It's on Thursdays. He talked a while ago. Somebody asked him, if you want to make a video, but somebody else has already made that video, what do you do? And he said, if that video doesn't exist on my channel, it doesn't exist. And I thought that was a smart way to look at it, because obviously you are going to approach things in your own way. Also, Heather's had the same thing where she's like, I feel like I should do this tutorial for, like this very simple YouTube tutorial for her YouTube coaching channel. And she's like, but there's so many videos on it already. And then the decision is like, yeah, but it would be nice if people are going to ask you as their YouTube coach how to do this thing. And instead of directing them to somebody else, it would be nice if you could direct them to your own channel. And so it's like, yes, okay, I'll make the video even though it's already, been made. And again, you'll make it your own way. So it's not like you can't make something just because someone else has. But what you don't want to do is have the way somebody else makes something affect the way you would make it and make you think like, well, I need to do it that way for it to be good. Like, I think Gerald Undone has done a very good job of highlighting the importance of technical literacy in product reviews and understanding products and stuff like that. And I've seen other people start to bring in a little more of like technical stuff into their videos since then, at least in the photo video niche, which I think is good. But fortunately, nobody has tried to be Gerald Undone. Like, no one has gone into that level of depth. But I think it's pushed people to go, okay, maybe I do want to know a little bit more about how this works, or a little bit more about what this means, or if the instruction manual of this product claims to do something, does it actually do it? Just a little more time, a little more research. So I think that's a positive thing. But if somebody were to just try to make like the most technical reviews about these same products, like why would you watch that? There's already someone who's like the person who's doing it. They're already doing it. So I know we're kind of getting in the weeds here, but I just want to make it clear that there's nothing wrong with being influenced by other people. There's nothing wrong with being inspired or learning a better way to do something from someone else. But what you don't want to do is feel like because somebody else is good at what they do, and because they do what they do in this way, that then that is the only way to do that well. Because you might have it, you just might have a different approach. And your different approach could very well be the thing that is pulling people to you in the first place, to actually, that could be the reason people like you. And you don't want to lose that. You don't want to extinguish that just because you're doing what you think you should do. So anyway, long story super long, talking about computer reviews, I had to quickly realize, no, if I watch a bunch of computer reviews, I'm going to see a bunch of people reading specs. I'm going to see a bunch of people doing benchmark tests. I'm going to see all this stuff, which personally, like, is not what I'm interested in talking about because I don't care. Like, that's not what has affected me in terms of this computer. What has affected it is the fact that I spent the least amount of money I've ever spent on a computer and gotten the most return on my investment ever. And it's changed the way that I work. It's changed the way that both professionally and personally, like, it's just changed everything. And I want to share that with people because I'm excited about it. I think there's a lot of people in my shoes kind of wondering, like, would that be good or would that be bad? And I can at least go, hey, from my point of view with this workflow, here you go. And so what I want to do instead of getting myself bogged down in how a computer review, quote unquote, should be, I want to think of, well, what do I want to talk about? What do I want to communicate? And then share that. And sometimes I think the reason I get insecure about this is because sometimes you do run the risk of missing something that is important. And what I mean is, there have been times in the past where maybe I'll review something, a microphone, a lens, a light, or whatever, and I'll do it my way. And then somebody in the comments will say, like, you didn't even mention the blah, blah, blah. And it might actually be like a very important use case scenario, or it might be a feature that like is important, but I just don't really use. And so it didn't cross my mind. And part of me feels like, it crosses the line from like, this was just a creative preference to, I probably didn't do as good of a job as I should have. And so I want to be aware of, what do I need to cover? But I don't want to feel like, well, here's a video. It's a 15-minute video of benchmark scores and technical specifications, which you can get in 30 other video. Like, there's no shortage of that. So like, I would rather add something new to the conversation. And it comes back to the issue that I and many creative people struggle with, which is confidence, because I think it's a cliche at this point, but that's quote of done is better than perfect, which I think the idea behind that was like something that was embodied by the creative community a couple years ago. And I guess it would be the ethos behind that is so powerful, and I agree with it. It's so much better to finish something and put it out there, even if it's imperfect, than to be so precious about something and spend so much time on it that it'll never get done. Like, who cares that you have a masterpiece that no one's ever going to see? Like, I would rather just see a really good thing that actually exists in the world. And for me, when I started creating stuff and putting it online, learning to approach things that way was really, really important. And that's what helped me be more comfortable with creating more stuff. And, you can inevitably just get better and better because you're doing more and more instead of, oh my gosh, I spent 3 years on this one thing. It just doesn't make sense a lot of the time. But I think that phrase has also been butchered and now been used as an excuse to just do mediocre work by a lot of people, because the unspoken truth of done is better than perfect is that it only applies if you have very high standards to begin with. I think we've all known people or known of people, or maybe you are somebody who, when there's something that needs to get done, if you've ever known someone where, okay, they're going to do this thing and you don't even have to worry about it. It's going to get done on time. It's going to be done super well. And it's just like, you just sort of feel like a sense of calm when something is put into that person's hands because it's going to be handled so well. Hands handled, nice. That is somebody with incredibly high standards. And sometimes I think that person could push themselves to turn something in early, and maybe it's not perfect, but it's still going to be really, really good, even if it's not at the level that they would have totally wanted it to be for them to call it perfect. If you're that kind of person, if you already have really high standards for yourself, then yes, done is better than perfect. If you're completely lacking in technical skills, if you have no high standards, then no, done is not better than perfect, because you absolutely can create garbage that doesn't serve or benefit anybody, including yourself, because you didn't even get the benefit of creating something that's high quality, like because you just rushed it and popped out a piece of junk. So done is better than perfect only works if you have high standards to begin with. And the reason that I bring that up is because when it comes to trusting yourself to do things your own way and building that confidence, in my case, I recognize that I am somebody who has high standards. And that means if I'm going to take on something like a computer review or a course or whatever, something I've never done before that I'm unfamiliar with, yes, there are going to be areas that I'm ignorant of, naive of, not knowledgeable about, but I know that I'm smart, I'm capable, I'm talented, and I have high standards. So even if I'm doing things my own way, which might not be the traditional way, I will still make sure that it's done to a certain level of quality and with a certain level of thoroughness. That means it's going to be valuable for the people who consume it and for the people who find it. And it's just scary to it's hard to, it kind of sounds like tooting your own horn to be like, no, I'm just good. I got this. Don't worry. I don't need to know about stuff. I can figure it out. But I don't mean it in that way. And I'm sure you know that. I just mean, if you're a talented, creative person, you probably have the capability to decide, hey, look, I'm doing a computer review and I never really do computer reviews. That's okay. I know I should talk about this. Like, I'm not new to computers. I'm not new to reviews. I'm not illiterate in this area. So I know what I should talk about, and I'll just talk about it my way. And then the end result, can't speak to the video that I have not made yet, but speaking of past videos and podcasts and things, the end result is going to be something that is so much more uniquely you that then people can identify with it, because that, again, is your superpower, as corny as it sounds, is the fact that you approach things your way, and nobody else can do that, because that's what's going to pull people in to you. It goes back to the same example of, and I always use school examples, but if there's 4 10th grade English teachers and they're all teaching from the same textbook, the same material at the same school in the same department, but students will inevitably say, like, I like this teacher, I don't like that teacher, this is my favorite teacher, oh, that class is so boring. And it comes down to the person and the delivery. And yes, sometimes there are just straight up bad teachers where it's like everyone's like, don't get their class because it's terrible. But sometimes you can find that, one student's favorite teacher is another student's least favorite teacher. And if you look at them objectively, they're both good. They're both covering the material. They're both caring about the students. They're both, diving in the way that they need to. Just the approach might be different. The personality might be different. And that's the same thing in these contexts here, is the fact that you're even having these thoughts means that you're not going to be or create something that is objectively bad. So it means you're going to create something that's good and to a certain level of quality. And it might be imperfect. It will be imperfect, and that's okay. But it's going to be to a certain level of quality. And if you let it be to your specific tastes, instincts, abilities, whatever you want to call it, then that is going to be what makes it uniquely yours and not just the video that anybody else could have made. And that's what's going to pull people towards you. It might mean that people don't like it, that some people don't like it, but that's okay, because if some people decide like, oh, I really hate this guy's stupid, cheesy jokes, how annoying and awful. Sure, I understand that person does not like cheesy jokes, but other people really do. And that's the thing that brings them and endears them and the whole deal. And so the channel is for those people. It's not for other people. If somebody doesn't like spicy food, it doesn't make spicy food bad. It just means they need to go eat something else because that's what they like. And then the people who like spicy food will get the spicy food. I might have just compared myself to spicy food, which is not the comparison I intended to make, I promise. So ultimately, what I'm not advocating for when I say, when they zig, you zag, is being just an annoying contrarian, because I have worked with contrarians and it sucks. The person who will just always have the differing opinion, who will always do the opposite of what everyone is doing. That's exhausting. So I'm not advocating for that. What I am advocating for, though, is really paying attention to, when is something just a good idea? Like, if the trend is to make sure that your videos have good audio, please hop on that trend. Please do what other people are doing to make sure your videos have good audio. But if the trend is a certain style thing, or to approach something in a certain way, or to take on a certain persona, or to make a certain type of video, or, whatever your subject matter might be, really think about it and go, okay, is that what comes naturally to you? Is that instinctively what you would do, or would you approach it differently? And if you would approach it differently, I would encourage you to lean into that and focus on that and explore that, because that's what's going to draw in your audience, not just leeching off of someone else's audience where they're not even that interested in what you're doing, but you get to build and cultivate your own community and your own audience. And you never know, one day you could be the person that then starts the trend because you were doing things your own way. And that would be pretty cool. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that thinking about these things and saying them out loud makes me feel more confident in applying them to my own creative endeavors. And I hope the same is true for you. I hope that hearing them, thinking about them, makes you feel confident and secure in just trusting yourself as a person with high standards and with skills to do things really well, and to trust that when you do things your way, the uniquely you part of it is going to be what makes it stand out, as corny as that sounds. But I don't care. Darn it. It's true. So thank you, as always, for spending, your time with me. I really, really, really appreciate that. I have a feeling I've got a question and answer episode coming up in the not too distant future. So keep an eye out on the social medias for the call for questions. But of course, you don't even have to wait for that. Anytime you want, you could reach out to me or send an email to tom@enthusiasmproject.com. You can even include a voice message attachment to be part of a future show if you've got something you want to add to anything we've talked about, or you've got another idea. And you can always follow me at SoDarnTom. Oops, I forgot to push the button for the music. So thank you, as always, for spending your time with me. I appreciate it very, very much. And I hope you have a safe, happy, healthy, fun week. And I will see you next time.